wesn.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. We're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to himself. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
let's go to the last part.
I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. we at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WESN.
Another triple homicide, another attack of a family in their home. Motivations are unclear. The theory, the hypothesis, the rumor, perhaps, the belief is that two young men, one of which may be a family member to the deceased, was apparently saying things in the public sphere which angered a gang member or a gang leader, and it caused this result. Now, that detail, that doesn't necessarily bother me, although to some extent, motivation behind murder is generally something that the public would be concerned about. To me, the most important thing here is the result. This was not a drive-by shooting where the target and collateral damage essentially was killed. Innocent bystanders, whether they were family members, friends, strangers. This was potentially the execution of a family. And what makes it to some extent worse is that we don't even know if the intended target is among the deceased. Even if the family was involved, well, a member of the family was involved in criminal activity, as is the case whenever something like this happens, that possibility is always considered in the discussion, in the public discourse. Even if it was all of the family members, including the older teenage son, or Older, not in the sense of, I don't know if it's the older brother, but older in the sense of an older teenager, not a younger teenager. Regardless, and this isn't the first time this has happened. Criminals have gone into a home and killed the occupants. Not gone into a home to rob the occupants and ended up killing them. Not tried to kill somebody and other people are caught in crossfire. No. It seemed as though they systematically killed everybody in the house. With the first person, one of the sons, the son that was killed, was caught outside, and then they proceeded to go inside. For what reason, ultimately, we don't know, but it harkens back to when I think there were 1 or 2 similar incidents. Criminals went into a home and executed people. In one case, they tried to kill, or seemingly appeared to have tried to kill everybody. In another case, I don't think they tried to kill everybody, but they did kill who they wanted to kill. And it begs the question, in the past, wasn't there a situation where a gang killed a family, going after one man? Notice the similarities to the modern day dilemma. Going after one man, ended up killing a whole family, and then the state made an example of them and executed 6 to 8 people. Of course, I'm speaking about Dolce and his gang. Executed tout de suite. Now, to some extent, a contributing factor was the fact that one witness was found also killed in a gruesome manner. But my point is, that was, whether we think it was done correctly or not, a signal to the gangs, to the criminal element. Don't do things like this, because we'll come after you. But it seems as though the threat of the state finding you, arresting you, and then putting you on trial, convicting you, sentencing you to death, and then executing you, that threat of consequence is such a toothless tiger. We are no longer safe in our own homes. That's the implication. I don't think we could trust, given the fact that the police just last week admitted 55% or so of murders are gang-related. That means 45% are not. Now this, you could argue, might be gang-related. But again, we need the linkage to show that the excuse usually is some degree of murder is fine because it's gangsters killing gangsters. Do you really care about that? That's essentially what they kind of use to shield themselves from criticism. But what happens if it's not gangsters killing gangsters, even if it's gang-related? So then that cuts into the 55%. Long and short is, criminals will probably become more emboldened to continue escalating the violence. But it's fine, because we have a government in place that is doing, well, at this point, I can't really say what they're doing, because it seems as though they're just saying that they're doing and continuing with the same old, same old. And one could argue, effectively, they're doing nothing. Sure, Michael Smallhead, this is talking about a WESN, the content capital. A couple stories to get through before we welcome the good lady. Apologies for the late start. That's ultimately on me. With that said, let's kick off today's daily review. I was beside myself reading a statement made in conjunction to Christopher Hughes' third arrest and subsequent release. I wasn't necessarily going to speak about this matter as much as, yes, he himself had something to say, and it's kind of in line with the progression of things, so I didn't necessarily think that it was important for me to speak on it. I already spoke on the fact that he was rearrested twice and was deported in a situation where he came back to face a local court who wanted him to come back. But then, Mr. Hughes' statements, par for the course, I understand where he's coming from. It's more or less how these things goes. I'm not saying he shouldn't have said it. He had a right to say what he said. And we'll see where it goes. I suspect the likelihood of a lawsuit, because, not just a lawsuit, but a big lawsuit reward, that is to say, the lawsuit being more and more successful, chances are probably increasing higher and higher as the situation evolves. But more importantly, I do think to some extent the payout might also be higher than what it would have been if this was an average citizen of TNT. Because let's not forget, the whole reason of this thing is because, well, yeah, they're making us look bad. All right, cool. So, the Minister of National Security, answering a question, said that he was advised that Mr. Hughes returned recently to appear in court, and having done so, did not deport TNT to his homeland, but decided to stay. That's what he's saying. He's saying Mr. Hughes decided to stay, all right? And continued to make the videos of a nature that were complained of previously, and therefore the police operating in the protection of the people of Trinidad and Tobago have acted in collaboration with the Immigration Division. And the laws of Trinidad and Tobago are in operation in those regards. Okay, so first of all, to make videos of a nature that was complained about. And then won't you just, I don't know, add more to his charges? Maybe arrest him? Why deport him? Because the fact of the matter is, this is apparently the court side of the matter. He returned to TNT on August the 18th for the August 23rd hearing and had to lodge his passport with the High Court Registrar as part of his bail conditions. On Friday, he will appear before Justice Idrani Sedeno to vary his bail. This is what's going to happen on Friday. And that will allow him to regain his passport so that he can leave the country and then possibly appear virtually in January. Only in TNT is the government going to do something to potentially lead to someone fleeing the country and not coming back with a criminal charge. Because to some extent, if the court tries to find him in contempt virtually from his home country, I wonder if his lawyer could make the argument, well, my client, they already were in the process of deporting him, so they need to tell us which authority are we supposed to take seriously, the court or the Immigration Division and the Ministry of National Security. Because we literally have a situation where potentially what the minister is not saying is that the actions of the Immigration Division may have gone counter to the conditions of Mr. Christopher Hughes' bail. Had to lodge his passport as part of his bail conditions, will appear before a judge to vary his bail, which will allow him to regain his passport, leave the country, and possibly appear virtually in January, because who is going to complain him if he doesn't want to come back? And again, so the fact that the minister wants to say he chose to stay. I don't know, when someone has a criminal matter, more often than not, you're not free to travel. Now, if they wanted to deport him from the jump and not take this to court, that's fine. You didn't do that. You charged him with sedition and you hauled him before the courts. Now you want to deport him, and then what? If he was deported, on what basis are we going to justifiably say that we have a reasonable expectation for him to have to come back? And by the way, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying, as a YouTuber, his situation is going to be international. when it gets out in the public, because he's also a foreigner. So it's not about his profession being held to a different standard. He's a foreigner who has foreign eyes on his situation already. And it has made foreign press already. Which means that if the government tries to prosecute him and fails, and Mr. Hughes successfully sues the state, whichever grounds his legal team decides is the best way to do it, this is not the case of I was defamed in a national newspaper or a country of 1.5 million people. I was defamed in their press. This is a case of I was defamed and it went international. And my emotional damages, because the damage to my reputation went international. Which means I would imagine that a judge might be so inclined, whatever we will pay out, if it's local slander or anything along those lines, might be significantly increased in this situation because the situation is international. It's almost as though no one actually thought this thing through, because again, how do you think this thing through and then say the guy who had to give up his passport as part of his bail condition when he came back in order to face his next hearing, we're going to deport him? And then someone apparently is going to think it's a good idea for the minister to say he came back of his own will, he decided to stay. Sorry, not that he came back of his own will, but he decided to stay. He decided to stay is a statement that implies of his own will. Because if the court compels you to stay, you don't make a decision to stay. There's no I decide to stay in that. It is the government that has me before the court. That court is telling me, and now that I'm back, I'm not going anywhere until I have permission to go. And apparently, the Immigration Division is trying to facilitate his desire to remain home. So I guess not only are we potentially giving away money to someone in a situation that is laughably political, because that's the implication of the minister's statement. He did videos and people complained about it. We don't, to what extent is there a legal precedent that what he did is sedition, proven in a court of law? So we're adding fuel to the fire of his lawsuit potentially. Because again, if his continued video making was against the law, why didn't you just arrest him and add to his charges? Or is it that that's what the Immigration Division or somebody in the Ministry of National Security wants to sell us, but the reality is, as soon as he decided to sue the state for the second arrest, they decided to come down on him with a third arrest. Because the second arrest was about something, was about money laundering, not about making videos. There was another topic that I wanted to get into with regards to Suonong, but I want to give that enough time. It was something that he said, which is highly disappointing to me because I think it betrays the level of intelligence that he himself has. I'm not going to go into it because the good lady is here. So let's take a break. When we come back, there was a special report. And now we're going to go into the technical weeds of it with the good lady herself. Stay tuned. This is Talking from the WSN, Content Capital. We'll be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
And we're back here and talking about WESN, the content capital. A lot of highly technical things have come out. Discussions over high concept topics. And of course, one of them is the situation with the Auditor General, which you have to marry the legal aspects of a protected independent office of TNT with the functions of an auditor. Put that together and you take two already complicated situations and it births forth a situation that's even more complex, but one that is important. important enough that we should not overlook it. It's very easy for people to hear the technical mumbo-jumbo and say, this is too much for me, I don't want to know what's going on. These are the kind of things that if we want our country to be governed properly, we need to be able to at least try to keep up a little bit so that we are better informed when a general election is called. And to try to help inform all of us, we have, at the very least, she's not an auditor, but she is a legal mind, and she has been in the Ministry of Finance, you know, had a small job in that ministry. We have, of course, the good lady Karen Neshishera. Good morning, Karen.
Yes, good morning to you, Sean, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, there's a lot to unpack, really, mainly because things are moving such fast and furious. But the real issue, I think, is, and the disappointing part of the whole thing, is that the Auditor General, first of all, the office was created under our Constitution, and it is also provides, I think, 116.4 thereabouts. I don't want to
I
really
think it's
quote.
116.2.
No, it says that no political interference.
Or 6.
Yes, I don't want to go too much into the sections because I can't remember all of them.
Section
off the top of my
6,
head.
not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority.
So person or authority, right? And that is to insulate the office from political interference. And because what is the job? So you have to look at what the job is. Just very quickly, and what is the issue right now? The issue right now is a special report that she has, which you can find, so there's no mystery to it. It's on the Auditor General website, and the website has her report that she's submitted. So you don't have to, we don't have to guesstimate or question what the report did say. So she is entitled to request a report, section 25.4. I will say that she may request a special report. So it's not, and that's under the statute. I think the most important thing is that this, to me, has become very personalized and very politicized, rather than doing exactly what the office was intended to achieve, which was to ensure that the public accounts, which include the revenues and expenditure of the government for a particular fiscal period, that they are properly accounted for. She's like any auditor you would have, if it is in private sector or wherever, but there's rules and it's governed by specific statute. So the two pieces of statute that govern the Auditor General, he or she, is the Exchequer and Audit Act, as well as the Constitution, the 116, which created the office of the Auditor General. But the one that sets out, number one, the duties and responsibilities, and she, the Auditor General, just happens to be a woman, Ms. Ramdas, has said in her own words what is the, and also if you go to the website, she does explain what is her duty as any auditor. She, at the end of the day, these are public accounts, only private accounts of any private firm. It's your money. Just remember that, it's your money that's being spent. And, her duty and her responsibility is to ensure that when the Treasury, which is the Ministry of Finance, sends the public accounts, among them is the revenue and expenditure accounts, that she's satisfied that they can be verified, that she's satisfied the necessary vouchers, the necessary procedures have been complied with. Because that's important in order for her to be able to do her job properly, which is to protect your money. It's not to belong to, it doesn't belong to any minister or any particular government. It's your money, and that's what the court, that's what the act does. And she's actually said in a statement that she made in her affidavit that she had filed some time ago, just to indicate, and she also says it in the website, but not in that detail. The purpose of the report is to ensure, that is the report that she has to submit every year, is to ensure that there's transparency, accountability, and good governance. It is this report that lawmakers and the public turn to for assurance that the government is acting in a transparent and ethical and lawful manner, that the financial reporting accounting systems in place accurately reflect the financial performance of the government. That is her job. Okay, that is her job. And sections 9, I'm not going to belabor it too much, but section 9 goes into the powers and functions of the Auditor General, not Ms. Ramdas, I don't know, this thing becomes so personalized, to me anyhow. she says that the Auditor General, if you look at Section 9.1, I have to refer to these sections in particular, it says the Auditor General shall, not may, you know, shall is, she must do it, shall examine, inquire into and audit the accounts of all accounting officers and receivers and all persons entrusted with the assessment of collection, receipt, custody, issue of payment of public monies. And that is what she's required to do. And in order to do that, Section 9 says she has to satisfy herself that all reasonable precautions have been made to safeguard the collection of public monies, etc., etc., and that payments are properly chargeable and supported by sufficient vouchers. She's doing her job. That's what the Act tells her to do. She's not sitting on there and saying, listen, I want to put these rules in place, and you got to follow the rules. It's the Act that does that. And the Act has done that for a specific reason, because suddenly we found, which has started this whole brouhaha, as I would call it, is that we found out very simply, the date for the public accounts to be submitted, the latest date to submit the public accounts to the Auditor General was January 31st. Now, you could ask for a resolution, but that resolution is to extend the time. But that's to extend the time because you know you're not going to meet the deadline. In this case, the resolution was passed after the date had passed because clearly they were not happy. I am saying the Minister of Finance clearly was unhappy with her disclaimer in her report. So he went to Parliament and got a resolution, which I query whether they could have done it because it didn't seem to contemplate asking for it after the fact. And so he did go and get a resolution passed because what had happened is having January 31st date being arrived at, they subsequently came and said there was some variance, and the variance was a result of the decimal point being put in the wrong place. So what within 2 days, what they're saying is that the electronic system that Central Bank was operating, instead of it showing that the expenditure was 2.5 million, it was showing 2.5 billion. So instead of the revenue being 10 billion, it was up to about 13 billion. So it's all about a decimal point. That's the explanation that she's supposed to accept. And supposed to accept that from the Central Bank. That is what she's supposed to accept and go along and say, okay, it made a mistake, we leave it at that. So what has happened is that when the minister was supposed to, by law, under the Constitution now, we're talking about the Constitution itself, it says, well, she had until April 20, end of April, to submit her public accounts to the Minister of Finance, the House and the Senate. And she did that on the 24th of April. And the Constitution, 116, says on the very next sitting of the House and of the Senate, the public accounts report must be laid before the Parliament, the House and the Senate. When those dates came, which would have been the 26th and 29th of April, respectively, one for the House, one for the Senate, this is where the resolution was passed after the fact. And having done that, it was agreed, I think, that they would give the Ministry of Finance up to May 31st to correct all errors they may have made, and the Auditor General until August 31st. But also, one has to remember, her filing of a special report is not her just deciding that she could do it, you know. Section 25(4) of the Constitution says that she can request a special report. And that is exactly what she required. So, and that came out of this. If you go to the, you don't have to take, please go to the website, because that's where I got my information from. All right, this is where I got my information from. So the point about it is they are trying to explain the variance between the ledger showing debit being much more of 2.5 billion rather than 2.5 million or something like that. And there was a mistake made. It should have been on the revenue side. And it was a decimal point mistake. That's what they're saying that was made, and that was the electronic system not operating properly. But one has to remember this. That is not all that the Auditor General said. In her special report, she gave and listed the areas of concern as Auditor General, which she is entitled fully to do, and the minister cannot tell her what to do. The Constitution protects her from him and from authorities. She's to do her job to us, People are doing as though she's fighting you. She's protecting you. I don't understand that, you know. She's protecting you. That's her job. That's why the Constitution created the job. And that's why the Constitution set out her powers. And that's why the Constitution insulated her from any personal authority from carrying out her duties. So, and the Exchequer and Audit Act, which is the other act, the major act, says that she can, 25(4), ask for a special report. So they were not doing her a favor. The act allowed her to do a special report, which she did. And when you look at the special report, I'm just going to say some of the findings. They just want to make it about the electronic system. She wants to see the electronic system because it's like any computerized system. What you put in is what you'll get out, right? And she wants to see how it operated because there was the amount involved.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to confirm that the system was the problem to then, as an auditor, say legally the system, the computer system was the problem. And if you can't see it firsthand yourself, I'm the auditor. You're not the auditor. I'm auditing you. You cannot tell the auditor that your error is from a system, and I'm just supposed to take your word for it.
That is the most ridiculous thing. Neither the central bank, look, the minister has his powers, and the central bank has its powers. The auditor general has her powers.
And that's why, you know, you wanted Section 6. Not to be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority.
And also the fact that 25(4) allows her to go for bring out a special report. And the central bank writes and invites if she wants to submit a special report pursuant to Section 25(4). She can.
It's not up to them.
Yeah, right. You're not doing her a favor. She can. So this is what she said. Now, this is among the findings. So you understand why she wants to see that electronic system and anywhere system. Because she wants to see the inputs. And it's reasonable. That's her job. I don't understand why people don't want her to do her job. Let her do her job. So this is what she found. Number one, I won't do all of the things that she said, but some of the things that she pointed out. She said in relation to authorization, the person to authorize the adjustment of vouchers as required by the legislation is the controller of accounts. And the authorization was not signed off by the controller of accounts, who was responsible for authorizing changes in the general ledgers, which is in the amount of 2.5 billion. There's no signature by the controller of accounts, and he is the one, by law, responsible for that, and there's no signature by him authorizing it. Then, secondly, she said, evidence was not seen that the debit advice slips prepared by the controller and sent to the chairman of the Inland Revenue were examined for unusual or material transactions. I think 2.5 million accounts is material. She also said, very importantly, the signatories for the preparation, checking, reviewing, and approving of debit advice slips were not seen or documented or examined. Accordingly, the accounts could not be determined who prepared them, who checked them, and who reviewed the debit advice slips. She also went on to say internal audit checks. There is provision under Regulation 13(4) of the Exchequer and Audit Act that there must be checks, and the checks are required that each accounting unit shall have a check staff of an independent internal audit section. No evidence of this seen on the documents examined at both the Inland and Treasury Division. Documents, for example, vote books, credit advices, debit advices, slip adjustment vouchers, central bank statements of accounts, other changes, vouchers, and checklists. No evidence of signatures or examination of internal audits. And she said to date, the internal audit report of material mistakes, which is the 2.5 million of statement of receipts and debit, has been certified by the Gen Chairman. Then she spoke about proper recording of financial transactions. Go to pages 24 and 25 of her report, and you'll see these are the things she pointed out. The inability to produce accurate and complete accounts showing fully the financial position of Trinidad and Tobago for financial year 2023 by Ministry of Finance resulted in the Auditor General receiving 5 versions. And she went through the 5 versions. She said one was the I think one was January 31st, another one was April 15, another one was April 16. And she said, and she put it in bold, they were wholly inaccurate. The final statements were being reconciled. So what I'm saying, without us going into the technicalities of it, clearly whatever was required to be done, she saw no evidence that it had been done. And then she said her conclusion on the audit was, this is at page 25 of her special report, which she is entitled to provide under the Exchequer and Audit Act. Nobody gave her a favor. Breakdown in the systems of internal control, ineffective internal audits, along with apparent lack of management oversight, and factors which may have contributed to non-compliance with legislative requirements of the Exchequer and Audit Act. What you want the lady to do? That's her job. And then, with regard to the request, which I see someone writing about why they won't meet with her, why they won't meet with her, making that as if that's the issue. That's not the issue. She has said what the problems are, okay? She has told you what the problems are, and she also went on to say that they are supposed to sign off. You're supposed to sign off on a statement of declaration certification at page 25. And that was signed off by the accounting officer, the permanent secretary, Ministry of Finance, the controller of accounts, and the acting treasury director. And if what she's saying, she can't find evidence of anything, she can't see that the authorization was given, she cannot see the internal audit requirements, and it's 2.5 billion, and you're telling me that decimal point mistake. I mean, is she doing her job to the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
And she now came on the job, so she didn't do the audits before. So the fact that she's now come on the scene and she already has such a big question mark to try to answer, not that she doesn't know what to do in her job, but rather there's this big hole that seemingly someone is trying to avoid her getting to the proper conclusion.
And the other thing you have to remember too is, oh yes, it was at 116, two of the countries says that the Auditor General, this was the other thing. This is where a lot of emphasis has been placed on why would the central bank governor meet with her? I mean, why? I mean, I'm not saying that's not important, but if I would refer to the letter that was written by Shiva Prasad on behalf of these, and it says so on behalf of the Registrar of the Auditor General, it says at 16.2 that she can, the Auditor General can authorize someone to write on her behalf once they have gotten the authority. Also, Section 10.1 says that too. So what happened is when the letter was written by Mr. Prasad on the authorization of Auditor General, which is provided for by 116.2 of the Constitution and Section 10.1 of the Exchequer and Audit Act, the letter set out in detail the things that they wanted to see. Mm-hmm. You see, they didn't just say they wanted to see. And when they asked for those things that they wanted to see, that was on a letter of June 28th, and set out the things that why they were requiring to see the electronic system and the Anywhere system. They got a letter back from the governor saying very tersely that he cannot accommodate the request, that because the request wasn't just to see the system and the Anywhere system, it set out why they wanted to see the system. And then for the minister, as I understand it, to say she didn't write and ask, it's somebody else, but she's authorized to give someone authorization. And if you see the letter which is attached to her exhibit, Shiva Prasad was given authorization to act on her behalf. So,
Section 2, the public accounts of Trinidad and Tobago shall be audited and reported on annually, and for that purpose the Auditor General or any person authorized by him in that behalf shall have access to all books, records, returns, and other documents relating to those accounts. That's the second part
what
of the section.
Is that? Section
116.2.
Right, and there, the first thing, if I remember the minister's response is, the reason why they didn't take it on because she didn't write it, somebody else wrote it. But the law says that she could authorize someone, and she authorized it because when you read there's an exhibit of the letter, you see on behalf of the Auditor General. So what are you talking about? And
and even still, that is not some insurmountable Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest to scale.
Yeah, it was.
What I mean to say is,
it was.
if the central bank governor honestly believed that to be the case, one phone call a day.
But he must look at the law. I don't understand why people don't understand this. This lady is not acting in her personal capacity.
Yes.
The central bank governor, Mr. Hilaire, is not acting in his personal capacity. The Minister of Finance is not acting in his personal capacity. That is why we have legislation to deal with a situation which we are now dealing with right now.
Well, to some extent, this situation, as much as more has come out about it, it's basically the same impasse. The minister is trying to say that the Auditor General is not doing her job, and the Auditor General is saying it's not for you to say that, and you need to give me these things in order to resolve this the way how my office is supposed to resolve it.
That is
no one else is supposed to resolve it for me.
And that's why you have Section 116 in the Constitution, the Supreme Law, because to prevent exactly what is going on now. Now, I have a feeling that when the letter, and this is just a supposition, I have a feeling that when Shiva Prasad, on behalf, which he's entitled to, you just read it out, right? And it's also in Section 10(1) of the Audit Act. I suspect that when, because I saw the letter, it's an annexure to her report. It details why they wanted to see the system and the Anywhere system. And I suspect that it's 2.5 billion. You just can't tell me it's a decimal point mistake made. From March, from you telling me literally from one day to the next, you fix the decimal point. She has outlined all irregularities.
The problem is, look how long it took them, apparently, to even, it wasn't one day to the next, it was a couple of months after the deadline. So I think one of the things that people don't understand, the government is trying to say, well, we made a mistake, but don't look at our mistake, you know, because we're trying to fix it. But how they're trying to fix it,
but it's not their role to fix it. But that is what, and what I'm trying to see, this is the thing I really want to bring home. In her report, she gives you reasons why she could not have the decision. She told you why. She told you things not signed off. She told you internal audit checks them out. She told you why.
Could it be that the central bank governor and the minister and whoever, they got so used to someone else maybe not necessarily going to the strict interpretation of the law, that they themselves are so inept, they don't realize they're running into a brick wall where they think, oh, well, this is how it's done. It's like, no. Just because it might have been done that way in the past doesn't mean it's how it should have been done in the past.
I think it's because of the amount involved. I think it was the amount involved that put her on alert. 2.5 billion is a lot. To go from, and remember, we are in a deficit, real serious position now, and the minister must be concerned that the revenue position was 10 billion before they moved the decimal point. And by doing that, removed it from expenditure to revenue and increased it to 13 billion. So, but the point about it is, she has a job to do, not Ms. Ramdas, you know, the Auditor General, right? And I think this is just my view, and it might be wrong, and it'd be good if the transparency and accountability, which is what the legislation is attempting to achieve. I would think that letting her have access, her or her staff, have access to what happened in this electronic clearing system, what was sent in, the documentation, because I think I have a feeling they don't want it to see what's in there.
Yeah, basically.
They don't want it to see.
It is not reasonable to discount that possibility.
Yes,
right?
Yeah,
it's too obvious given the fact that I think the minister, I found it very hypocritical of him saying she's not following the process when he essentially did not follow the process 2 to 3 times, right? He tried to fix an error that was found after the cutoff point.
But you see, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
It may not be an error. That is what, because if I have to rely, this is what you have to understand. You cannot
Let me
just say
rephrase.
it as a referral because you found findings.
Let me rephrase. He tried to submit new documents after the cutoff point.
Right.
He didn't lay the report in Parliament when the Act says he is supposed to not
because of a disclaimer. Because
but
does he?
But that technically he doesn't have
no,
the right.
he does not have the right. But he passed a resolution, and those resolutions are intended to be resolution to extension. Because you know you can't meet the deadline January 31st, but you don't meet the deadline and then ask to extend the time. It's because now you try to fix things because I think he was caught by surprise by her disclaimer, and I think the reason why she may have done it, listen, I really don't know what she views are, and I don't want to know them either. I'm just dealing with her as Auditor General. I have a feeling that the amount, it was too much to overlook. And because there was so much, she has a duty under the Exchequer and Audit Act, especially Section 9, and to protect our public accounts. And she was doing her job, and she found, I do not want people to underestimate pages 24 and 25 for the reasons why she could not sign off on it. And could not sign off on it, no internal audits, missing signatures, no evidence that the Controller of Accounts had reviewed, and these are very serious allegations. So I suspect that the electronic system that she wants to have a look in is feeding information in. And that is going to confirm, I feel, or give confirmation to what she is saying, independent of her saying it.
Now that's what
I think.
As of right now, we can only speculate. We can't reasonably say that there's a reasonable possibility that's not the case, right? It's a reasonable possibility that it is the case. But I will say this: what we do know, I would say, given the actions and statement made by the Minister of Finance and the Attorney General, I believe it's undermining the process of auditing. Not just the Auditor General, but the basic process to audit. You cannot, I am the government, the Auditor General is auditing my accounts. I do not have the authority. In what entity around the world has the authority to tell the auditor?
Why do you think
exactly.
You audit accounts? Why do you do it?
You have someone independent to
for what reason?
Go through to prevent any sort of mismanagement, corruption, fraud, and what have you.
Right, and that's what she's doing. For you, the people are doing as though she's fighting you. She's protecting you. And the thing is, in the minister's statement, he said, and no, he didn't put it in, and he had nothing in writing. He said that they were fine with everything. But I love to see who were those senior auditors that said everything was fine with everything.
And let me give you a parallel situation. This is like the police body cameras. The Auditor General is like a body camera. She is there to tell the public, I have gone through everything and everything is fine. And when she does that, we're like, everything is fine, we could trust, because somebody independent went through the whole thing. But my point is, Karen, just like how we asked the question, why we don't have body cameras being used? What's wrong there? Right? It looks like someone's trying to hide something. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but this
why
is different.
Are you interfering?
You know why it's different?
Well, obviously it's...
Why is it different? Because the constitutional framers understood the importance of having a check and balance against public misuse.
It's even more cemented than body cameras. It's a major part of the law.
Exactly. And all she's doing is following the law. And all they are doing, and it makes the central bank, you see, because the letter that Shiva Prasad signed on her behalf, which she's entitled to do based on the legislation, constitution, and the act. And the right to have a special report is also in 25(4). They're not doing her a favor. There's reasons why whoever drafted that legislation put those provisions in. There are reasons for that. And we are seeing evidence of those reasons. And I think it's the amount involved and her fact that she could not, in good conscience, sign off on it with an explanation of a decimal point mistake.
And folks, it's not just us saying it, right? Dr. Terence Farrell basically said something similar. He said office holders, whether in the central bank or the Auditor General the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of all have to act with a certain degree of responsibility to the larger public, and I don't think that has been very evident, quite frankly. Now, my only thing is I do wonder if he's trying to be diplomatic by including the Auditor General, right?
What I think is, I think what he missed out, because he has a degree in law, he's a lawyer. I think what he missed out, which is what I am stressing so much, is that you use the example of the body cameras. That's probably a policy decision. What we're dealing with, a constitution and an act, that is what she's operating under, and that is what gives her authority to act. And she's doing it for you and for me, because it's not a private company. All private, if you are trading on the stock exchange, you know you have to give an audit. If you have, even in small companies that don't have that sort of thing, they send their books to get audited so that they could tell their, whoever it is, that, look, we can account for this, we account for that, we can account for this. That is what she's trying to do. And you are trying, and the Constitution understands that there may be people not happy with her doing that. And therefore, they specifically put in that section. I don't understand how people don't understand that, that her actions are based on the Constitution and the Act, and it's not personal to her, and it's the amount involved, and you let her do her job. Let her do her job.
Meanwhile,
and I'm not taking any side on it.
Yeah, meanwhile, we've had the DPP who has had his disagreements with the government and now the Auditor General. Just so happens that we had constitutional reform consultations where one of the recommendations coming out of that is to have some stronger measures to remove said office holder if their behavior was detrimental to the office. Very subjective turn of phrase.
General. What does detrimental mean?
And one could argue that the arguments that the government has put forward, they could potentially, if such legislation was already in place. I know, but what I'm saying is the subjectivity of that. They could, what they have said so far, they might try to say it's detrimental to the country. In fact, that's to some degree what the argument of the AG and the Minister of Finance is, that the underrepresentation of revenue is wrong and bad for the country. Except,
but she's saying, please,
I know,
page 24 and 25 and see what she said.
But my point is, it makes this whole part of the constitutional reform recommendations highly suspicious, convenient.
What does detrimental mean?
Right? And the timing of it. Or all of a sudden we have an Auditor General that doesn't want to play ball, and we just so happen to put something in to say maybe we should consider removing these people more easily.
I am a lawyer too, right? You're right about saying I'm a lawyer. And I know when you use the word detrimental, what in heaven's name does that mean?
Exactly.
Right? So what is it that she's doing detrimental to whom? The minister, the government, the politicians, or the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Who is the detriment to? Anyway, this matter is going to the Privy Council, and we will get some resolution, which is why, you have people like myself who have said, and actually, I will say that Hope's, one of the things that Hope has put forward, and I do think is a good suggestion. You did agree with it. You don't change your mind.
No, I just don't know if it will be easy to implement or agreed upon by all parties involved.
Well, that's a different discussion. Yeah. But if you're looking for the issue, I don't think is the ability of the judges. I think it is the question of whether based on decisions that have been overturned by the Privy Council that involve the state or state enterprises, the trust and confidence, which is the foundation of governance. If using that methodology would build that trust,
because here's the thing I think people haven't necessarily understood, and just to close on that point, moving away from Privy Council, if we do it, we can't go back if we don't like the results.
No, we can't.
If we don't like the results, we're stuck with what we have if we make the change.
We're doing a good job, I think. They did with Vigada.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is the reason why I want to be cautious in making this decision and take our time in making the decision is there is no buyer's remorse where we could reverse and return. I know we have to move on, but I mean...
but I mean move on as a country. I don't mean move on the issue.
Oh, no. I understand what you're saying. It's just my hesitancy.
Understandably.
Exactly. Folks, let's take a break. When we come back, we open up the phone lines. You don't have to talk about this situation, but I would recommend that it behooves you to try to be informed on this and other matters like this, which are probably even more important than you think, even if you already think it's important. But stay tuned, we'll be right back in a couple minutes after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today. And we're back here talking about the WSN. The phone lines are open. Please, when you are connected, try not to have the phone conversation through the television. We have San Fernando already on the line. Good morning, caller, you on the air. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Karen. Hello?
Hi, morning, morning.
Yes. Let me first, 3 quick comments. I first want to talk about, when you commented about Mr. Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference between the immigration authority and the courts, and that is where this conflict is, because the minister can give direction to the immigration authority, which is what he did. Hence the reason why Mr. Hughes was still with a deportation order, and so there's a conflict, but there's a difference, and they can't. The immigration department doesn't determine Mr. Hughes getting back his passport, and Mr. Hughes had to apply for his passport. Let me just say this to you clearly: he had to apply to make the application for his passport to his attorneys, and he did not do that as soon as the court case was his court appearance was concluded. Let's leave that there for now. Yesterday you had Mr. Griffith on.
Mm-hmm.
You have had Ms. Jayanti Media around here on several times. Kurt Mayhew, and then Karen is there as a commentator, but she represents a party. And they come and they speak. Those three speak on varying things. And you have a conversation with them about varying things on the economy and stuff. When Mr. Griffith comes, you allow Mr. Griffith to take over your show and only speak about what he wants to speak about, which is, let me finish, Sean.
No,
please.
caller, I requested that topic. I called him for that topic.
Okay, but Sean, the 3 times Mr. Griffith, is that the third time Mr. Griffith appeared on your program?
I would believe so, but the first time would have been when he was commissioner. I don't think he appeared.
And Mr. Griffith speaks about one thing only. You don't ever talk to him about the economy, about all the other things that are relevant. He only is a one pony. He only speaks about one thing. And that's why I refuse to call in, because there is nothing else. He doesn't bring anything else to the table. let me say that, okay, and I have that, and let me get that off my chest, thank you. Let me say the most important thing with the Auditor General. The population needs to read that report and read the audit findings and the audit conclusion. The audit findings and the audit conclusion is scandalous. If this is what is happening within the Ministry of Finance. And when I spoke, I remember when this came up previously, I said to you and Karen, the central bank is being left under the radar in this issue, and it has come out because I knew a lot of information that I knew I could not speak about, and that situation with the central bank where Mr. Hillier, who seems to have ring-fenced his bank and decided that he is not going to play ball, tells you there is something else wrong with that check clearing system which they're trying to protect. But the Auditor General, Karen said it, the audit findings on that report shows there was a lot of stuff going on there that it seems to be, let me put it simply, it reflects so badly on Minister Imbut running that ministry. That is what it does. And that seems to be where he has gotten his knickers in a twist, because the Auditor General is exposing him as the minister and all those departments under his purview that are not functioning properly. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen.
But Mr. San Fernando,
Thank you, Mr. San Fernando.
I want to just say that I am grateful that my point that I was trying to probably to emphasize, which is not so much the electronic system, the reason why they don't want to go into it, but the fact that she gave her reasons why she had concerns and she laid them down, and it is clear that that is her responsibility and duty as auditor.
And I actually, because the bar is low, I was thinking cover up corruption. But Mr. San Fernando is pointing out it might not just be corruption, it could be incompetence.
No, it's not just, you have got to be kidding. You have got to be kidding.
I think it's both, Karen. I think it's both.
Well, you're very great, that's very kind of you.
I think it's both. No, I think there's corruption there too.
Entitled to your opinion too.
We have Digger Martin on the line. Good morning, caller, you on here. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Sean. And good morning to the Honorable former Minister, Finance Minister. Good morning. A couple of things. Let me talk about the Auditor General that Imbut wants to go and meet, but she already went to the Central Bank and they refused her. So he should have said, Central Bank, go and meet her now. No, what I'm getting out of it, if finished Ministry of Finance, all the systems have fallen apart. That is what she said. She said a lot of documents haven't been signed. So the basic protocols of any system, if it falls apart, and that is what audits are for, to see the weaknesses of the system. And she has pointed out plenty. So Imbut, he should, I wouldn't say put a plaster on his mouth. Let the process be. And all she has to do, with she audit list, tick, no, yes, no. And if she's a good auditor, she's not compromising, because we need proper finances in this country. If we have scarce revenue and we have to allocate it properly, we have to know every day. If you have a company running on low margins, low sales, you know what the chief executive every morning comes? Two things he asks. He says, manager, let me see your sales, and he asks the accountant what we have in the bank. So those are the two things. So he is in control, and this is what the responsibility of the Auditor General to say, are you all in control? And the question is, no. The other two things, Karen, that you will agree with me, why are we hiding the CLICO report? And now we hiding the 20 million lost files report. Who are we protecting? It has to be somebody in high government official. I don't want to say if it's the Attorney General who misstate the affidavit, or is it a possibility of another Marcia Caesar fiasco. Remember, the person who was in charge of that office, I don't want to call names, but I believe, you know, when you like to read, you might understand, was promoted as a judge. And if that wasn't due diligence in terms of elevating somebody, then tell we who are culpable for that. And the other mark, I heard busting in a radio station this morning. You know what caused all those boats and the two boats, Cape class vessels that the Prime Minister went on one and spent a night? Apparently, is the fuel they use in it. It's supposed to have been using low diesel sulfur fuel, and somebody gave them the indication to use diesel. No, you have to connect and do what we call backward integration. And backward integration will tell me if the Nikon project to get low diesel fuel was linked with the purchase of those two boats. Hey, we bring in two boats here, and we have the fuel for it. And all of a sudden that collapsed and the boat collapsed. Now somebody must do an investigation for that now to see who has to go home. I hope they do an investigation and lose that price.
It'll have to be the cabinet. I think it'll have to be because they're the leaders.
Caller?
I just want to say to
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. And you raise a lot of issues, all of which creates an issue of a lack of confidence and trust and transparency and accountability. But I will just deal with what we came today to deal with. And I think you started off with that. And the purpose of the Auditor General is a control. It's a control system. And the control system can only operate if she has access to the material and she's satisfied. It's not any, and I think that is really at the heart of it. And I think I would recommend to anybody watching this show, go to the Auditor General's website, not to read what she thinks about herself, but read her special report. And then, especially pages 24, 25, and then she has part 2, dealing with the electronic system. And then you come to your own conclusion.
Let me just clarify one quick thing, Karen. I think what happens in this country is how corruption is done causes the system to break down, which leads to other problems that might not directly be corruption, but the system breaks down because when you break the system, you could get away with your stuff.
No, you know what happens? Then you could start using the white envelopes too. You see, that's where the bureaucracy comes in.
So we have another call. We have St. James, is it on the line? Morning, caller, you on here?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I want to just list two issues here that are trying to sort of get off my mind. One, I don't know what became of the review commission, the review salary commission. I don't know.
Right, salary review, yeah.
And the second thing is that my observation is that whichever government, body, the TNM, gets into power, they will have a hard time. As a matter of fact, I will say that they're doomed to failure because they have a lot of stuff to correct, put in place, and so that the manifesto will not be a solution in the end. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, caller.
Yes, and whoever comes in is going to have a difficult time. It's because the corruption is so entrenched, in my respectful opinion, in this country, that I was actually speaking to a very senior reporter, well known in Trinidad, and he just happened to call me, and he said, "Why are you sounding so hopeless? Why are you sounding so disenchanted?" Oh, you have somebody in San Fernando.
San Fernando again. Good morning, caller. On here. Caller, good morning.
Yes, Sean.
Yeah.
I want to. You see, sometimes we in the public have to be guardians of our own selves. And I want to say something about the comment that your caller made from Diego Martin about the boats, the cars,
sure.
and the fuel. Let me say this.
Yeah.
When the Trinidad and Tobago, the Petrotrin refinery closed down in 2018, they produce low sulfur diesel, right? Diesel below 0.5% sulfur is considered low sulfur diesel. When they closed down, Paria continue up to today to import low sulfur diesel. And people you have to correct all these misinformation. Up to today, they are still bringing in low sulfur diesel because that is a requirement. There are hardly any refineries in the world that are not producing low sulfur diesel. What the GTL plant was going to do was produce diesel with almost no sulfur in it, below 0.1%. It is misinformation.
Okay.
And I have a problem when people come on the public platform and give misinformation.
And I understand. I really do want to say that when the caller went on to give examples, I don't necessarily know if what he's saying is true.
Yeah,
and I didn't. So he said what he said, but I don't think we sat down here and said, what he said was true.
I'm not speaking of, you all know Karen, but he used the opportunity to use the platform.
Well, my only thing, Mr. San Fernando, I don't necessarily think he was acting in bad faith.
No, he wasn't acting
in bad faith. So I do appreciate you coming on to give your knowledge as a counterpoint so that we don't necessarily go down a rabbit hole that might not necessarily be the full facts. He might have heard something and then it took it to a conclusion that wasn't correct.
If it is the refined Paria was bringing in diesel above the requirement for sulfur, we would have had so much more problems with trucks and pickups and things in this country.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
Have a good day, Sean and Karen. Again.
Thank you, caller. Now, I will say that while I don't think this is likely, right? I don't think this is likely. Well, based on what you said, Mr. Sanfano, it sounds as though there is no high sulfur diesel, right? There's a part of me that wants to say that there's always the possibility that someone in the bureaucracy might have tried to save a few dollars to get low-grade stuff.
Well,
I don't know if that's available.
What I was told a few years back, and I had teacher at she used to minister. No, she minister of finance too, and Kevin Ramline, but even before her.
Right, okay.
And they doing anyway. What I did understand, part of this push for the gas to liquid, the variation, NICWAN, and all of that, is because of WHO, whoever setting the standard, and we have heavy oil. It's not light green.
Our crude
oil,
from the ground.
Crude oil.
Yeah.
And so it does have a heavy concentration of sulfur. So my understanding was that they were going to try and mix some of the products from these gas to liquid oil variations and mix it with the
heavy crude?
The heavy crude oil that was refined to bring it up to international standard. That is what.
So it was more to deal with our products, so that we not necessarily our usage.
And therefore to bring us up into international standard and also be able to sell and export
at
it.
a higher price point.
But I don't know if that is true. I can say that was what I was told at one time.
We have a caller back on the line. Caller, good morning.
Yeah, I'm here.
Morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean. Morning to you, Karen. Wonderful program as usual. Morning to my good friend down there. Excellent contribution. Sean, if you would allow me, I want to direct this question to Karen.
Sure.
Karen, I respect you with respect to your knowledge and experience. Had you been the Minister of Finance at this time to deal with the Auditor General, how would you have dealt with it? And I'm looking at solutions here this morning, and we have too many things going around with respect to this issue, and there's a brilliant mind work on it, and this would be a solution. Maybe somebody listening might take your advice.
Yeah, I would not. Obviously, it's easy for me to say what I would do. Thank you. Yeah, it's easy for me to say what I would do because I'm not in the hot seat. But if I could use an example of what I think I would do, I know I would do I believe that this would not have happened and I would have allowed her to do her job. And all the machinations, I don't think I would have Not under Prime Minister Manning. I would not have done that. That's just what I say. And the one thing I can use to support what I'm saying, if there's any way of showing my ability to be independent regardless of my personal views, is when the CL Financial issue broke. The question was, we wanted to have continuity. We understood that people were scared, and we were afraid that people were going to go Republic Bank, go take out their money, and oil was at $35. We were in a real serious position. I won't call the name of the person who was the managing director. When my husband was alive, he had died about 4 years, but that was my husband, and I was very, very loyal to him. And that person treated my husband extremely badly, and my husband was not a person to complain. And when he'd come and he'd tell me, I mean, I won't go into what it was, but it was very unfair in the way he treated him. But when the decision came, well, who are we going to put? I said, put him there, because we need continuity, and the public is looking at us, and we need to, they don't know what is going, my personal feelings, which have nothing to do with me in government. I tell people that, you know, if you want to represent a private company, do not go into government. Do not go into government. So that was one example. And a second example, God rest her soul, telling tales out of school, but and I still have in my thoughts, was Dana Sitahal, who many people who know me and who know us from mayors go by, knows how close she was to my family. She used to come to my family home nearly every single day. I could go on and on and on to show the closeness. And yet when I was made a minister, she pretended as though she didn't know me. She ill-spoke me when CL Financial on the front page of the Express. And actually a colleague who was in the Senate with her asked me if I knew her. And I said, yes, I did. He said, what does she have with you? She's always bad talking you. This is a person who my family was extraordinarily kind to, extraordinarily gracious and loving to her, to the fact that her first car, my father went and got it with her, with my sister. I'm saying that to say that when they came to me and said, who should we put to represent the government in terms of a lawyer? I said, Dina. I said, Dina has experience as Solicitor General. Dina has experience in DPP. I do not think Dina is a corrupt person. I think Dina is a hard worker, and she does not take anything from anybody. So if you need somebody who could do the job, and I think she was shocked that I am the one that recommended her. You know why? Because it was not about me. It was about my about the country. So if you ask me from my own experience, which I've just shared with you, if I were in this situation, it would not have, this situation would not have arisen at all. And I think, and I could give a final example. When I am going to give a final example, which is why I'm asking them to release the CL Financial Report. I have said it publicly that when I was asked to assist, could you help a particular person, which must be the subject of that report, and which they're doing all their best to protect, I stood up in my living room at 6:30 in the morning and said to the Prime Minister, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to help someone who I feel responsible for CIB's collapse. And I was prepared to walk away, and he could have fired me. He could have fired me right there. So I think I've been put to the test at least 3 times, and I put my country first. So to answer your question, if I would face with this situation, based on who I think I am, and the fact that I've stayed loyal to Mr. Manning, in spite of the fact that many of my colleagues didn't, because they wanted to go into office, and one of the things you had to do, well, I won't go into that, but let's just say, I'm sure if I had said the right things, I'd be in government. And I was offered a position. I wouldn't call the person's name. I was offered a position when they were in opposition to be senator, and I turned it down. I turned it down. That person knows that's the truth. So if you ask him what I would do, I think those actions show that if I were in the, or dealing with the, as Minister of Finance, in this situation absolutely would not occur. Not with that Prime Minister, and hopefully confidence he had in me as a minister.
And I'd just like to also back that up in the sense of the solution to this problem, at least based on what we know so far, is not that complicated. At every step of the way, it is let the Auditor General do her job, do the job of her office. So to some extent, if you're willing to do that on the, towards the end, which you obviously will be able to do, then you would be willing to do that from the beginning. Right, from the beginning.
I would not have interfered.
So that's why usually when someone asks a question like that, if you say, well, this situation wouldn't have occurred in the first place, some might view that as a cop-out. But what I'm saying is the solution all the way down the line is the same thing.
And I gave examples which I feel that I was tested as to whether I would allow my personal angst or anger or whatever retribution to affect my decision making. And I always put country first. And in fact, I told someone only last week, I said, if you want to hold on to someone being kind to you in private practice or owning a company, and that is going to affect your ability to make a decision, then you should not go into government. Stay in private practice. You want to be in the government, you have to serve all the people, rich, middle class, and the poor.
Because people, when you say it like that, and if someone tried to justify something by saying it like that, well, they were kind to me, so I need to be kind back to them. The problem is that
don't
also...
go in government. Don't go in
government. Because yes, you could say that they're kind to you, but it could also, but that doesn't mean that they should get some sort of consideration.
No, it's fair or favor. When you take your oath, the oath says without fear or favor. And if you cannot uphold the fear or favor, say, you see, government, let me stay outside of government and be on the sideline and help out who I want to help out. But do not step into the government's shoes. But once you do that, it's the people who have to represent.
And the thing is, you could try to justify it by saying you're repaying a favor, but that's not a criteria. As you say, that's not a criteria to determine how to govern.
But that's corruption.
Right.
That is corruption.
Right. But
that
you see,
is corruption.
The line.
That is corruption.
The line is too fine. There's essentially not enough of a difference between, well, they're giving me a bribe or they did me a personal favor.
No, but let's look at the situation.
Like there's no difference.
Okay,
enough.
let's look at the film with Jack Warner, right? Don't Jack Warner,
Alan
Warner.
Well, exactly.
Right? Okay, it comes out of the Ministry of Energy. He was quarrying on lands that he could not quarry on. And in 14 days, the Commissioner of State Lands gave him a permission to quarry. This is after the fact.
Yes.
Right? The FUL. The Prime Minister writing to the COP. And then say he will pick it up.
Well, the gift.
And then the Iron's Gate thing. I mean, what are you letting those private, personal relationships go into your responsibility as a government? That is why this government is an extremely corrupt one. And I would like to next week talk about Mr. Stuart Young with regards to finding out the level where the country you're not getting Dragonfield, level with the country you're not getting Lauren, level with the country that we do not have enough production for natural gas, for LNG and downstream. And Tony Paul wrote an article, okay, he wrote his article, but I asked this question from someone who would know how much gas do we need. Level with the country and stop talking about the license, talk about OFAC. And I want to talk about that next week because that goes with the whole idea of transparency and accountability, which this government, those are words that are anathema to them.
And folks, I mean, she's just called the shot for next week. So with that said, I don't wanna start off next week's show.
I get a cockroach call, though.
I don't want to start off next week's show so early. So with that said, I want to thank all of our callers for calling in and contributing. At the end of the day, it's good to be willing to engage in discussion. A lot of the problems that we have is that too many of us are not willing to constructively engage. We could disagree. We could have differences of opinion. We could have information that the others don't have that might then properly inform us in the future. Thanks to the good lady herself for breaking that down. I myself was looking at that special report and I'm like, I don't know if I am technically capable enough to go through this myself.
But enough to say that something's wrong.
Oh yeah.
The math's not maths.
Something is very wrong. And the implication is the damage done to the system and the process can then further lead to more issues down the line if not addressed now.
And I want to make it very clear. I do not know Ms. Ramdas. I do not know what her political affiliation is, and I do not care. It is of no interest to me whatsoever. What I'm interested in, that she does her job as Auditor General. And if she is a strong person and she stands up and she has her rights to stand up, we will have it all resolved at the Privy Council level. And that will be the end. That hopefully will give some resolution to this constant personalizing and political attacks, which are so unnecessary and not good for the country.
And with that said, folks, you can make today a good day if you try. As my colleague Mr. Shaw would always say, remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe out there. Be careful, dengue and the violence. Hopefully we will see each other safe and sound tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
term in July. She had asked national capitals to put forward 2 candidates for her new commission, 1 female and 1 male, so that she could ensure gender parity in her 27-member college. But some governments have flat out ignored her request, as other factors are more important to them, such as renewing a trusted heavyweight who's already in place or respecting various national party political traditions or conventions. In addition to this challenge to von der Leyen's authority, she'll have a major political intrigue to manage once her commissioners are eventually confirmed later this autumn. Indeed, she herself says that the decisions taken in this new 5-year EU mandate will determine Europe's place in the world for the next 50 years. We're going to delve into all of that with our guests. Christine Verger is Vice President of the Jacques Delors Institute, and Adina Revol is a lecturer at Sciences Po University here in Paris. Welcome to both of you. So Christine Verger, is this a rocky start for von der Leyen 2.0?
Mrs. von der Leyen, first of all, as you know, was elected by the European Parliament in July with a better majority than the last time. The last time in 2019, she got only 9 votes more than the majority. This time she got more or less 40 more votes, so it's a more comfortable situation. But still, her majority remains fragile. It's composed of the 4 main pro-European political groups in the parliament, the EPP, the Socialists, the Liberals, and the Greens, which was not the case for the Greens in the last time. So, first obstacle, she got it. Now it's the composition of her future team. And as you said, the national governments are the ones who first sent their proposals. And then Mrs. von der Leyen has to compose her team. Gender balance is one of the problems. In the last commission, there were 12 female commissioners. Now, when we speak, only 9 may be female commissioners. It's the weakest number since 2014, so 20 years ago. So probably she may have a problem with this, but from my point of view, it's not the main problem.
Let's come back to the main problem. I just want to get your reaction to all that, Adina Revol. What about this sort of backsliding in terms of male versus female content in the new commission?
Well, President von der Leyen expressed her determination to achieve a gender-balanced commission, and we should recall that the first von der Leyen commission